The Las Vegas Raiders dropped yet another game, this time for their 10th straight loss, putting them at 2-12 on the season. Things just don't look good right now, but let's break down what happened in this Falcons game. I feel like a few questions were answered, especially about a certain player on the offensive line. I've been saying for a while now that the Raiders need to consider moving on from this guy, and we'll get into that. The final score was 15-9, and to be honest, the game ended up being a lot closer than we thought it would be. But to be honest, the Raiders' offense was flat out terrible in this game. Up until the final minutes, they had only managed to put up 3 points. Then, with about 5 minutes left, the Falcons missed a field goal, which gave the Raiders some life. At that point, it was 15-3, and the Raiders took advantage of the miss. They drove downfield and managed to score a touchdown to make it 15-9. After that, the defense stepped up, got a stop, and gave the Raiders one last chance. They got the ball back, drove it all the way down to the Falcons' 35-yard line, but the game came to an end on 2 final Hail Mary attempts that didn't connect. Now, here's the interesting part. The Raiders actually had a shot to win this game. The defense did enough to keep it close. I mean, the Falcons don't exactly look great themselves, but it's worth noting how the Raiders managed to stay in it. You've got to give credit to these guys on the defensive side of the ball because they continue to show up and play hard. Rookie defensive tackle Jonah Laulu did really well, honestly. This kid's story is worth highlighting. The Raiders picked him up after week 1 of the season when he was cut by the Colts, who had drafted him in the 7th round. He's getting more playing time now, largely because of Christian Wilkins' injury, and he's made the most of it. In this game, he had a sack, and there was another standout moment late in the 4th quarter. Patrick Graham had Laulu drop back into coverage on the Falcons' final possession. They were trying to pick up a first down, and Laulu broke up a pass from Kirk Cousins. That's impressive for a rookie defensive tackle. Now, if we assume Antonio Pierce and Patrick Graham are retained for next season, there's a lot to be optimistic about on defense. A healthy Max Crosby, a healthy Malcolm Kuncey, and Christian Wilkins back in the lineup would make this unit even stronger. Adam Butler also had a couple of great plays, and one of them was especially impressive. He completely blew up Chris Lindstrom, who many people consider the best right guard in the NFL. Butler drove Lindstrom straight back into the quarterback, completely disrupting the play. That's the kind of strength and skill that gives you confidence in this defensive front moving forward. Another guy who deserves a ton of credit is Robert Spillane. Spillane had a really nice interception in this game. Just a textbook play on his part. Since coming to the Raiders, he's been rock solid. He's consistent, he's smart, and he's turned into a real leader on this roster. You can't overlook that kind of impact. In fact, since he's been with the team, Spillane has pulled in 4 interceptions, which is huge for a linebacker. The Raiders absolutely need to lock him up for the next couple of years. He's earned that contract, no question about it. On the flip side, one guy who didn't help his case at all was Jack Jones. If you missed the game, Jones got beat early for a touchdown. Again, that brings his total to 7 touchdowns allowed this season. Not every play is his fault, but for the most part, Jones can hold his own throughout a game. But when you're giving up that many touchdowns, it's a problem. Plain and simple. Jack Jones has been a tough watch lately. He's got potential, no doubt about it, but he keeps getting beat the same way over and over again. It's mostly double moves. Today it was a sluggo route that got him burned by Drake London. Last week it was a fake screen where the receiver just took off, and the week before that, it was another fake screen where the supposed blocker released downfield. Unlike most people on social media chanting, "Cut Jack Jones," I'm not cutting him. He's still on his rookie contract, and next year is the final year of that deal. Let him play it out and prove himself. With a more consistent pass rush next season, hopefully with a healthy Max Crosby, Malcolm Kuncey, and Christian Wilkins, the pressure up front will make life easier for the secondary. Another thing that really hurt the Raiders in this game was special teams. I'd argue one of the reasons the Falcons won today was because of their punter. He completely flipped the field multiple times, and on the other side, the Raiders couldn't get anything going in the punting game. Field position is one of those parts of the game that often gets overlooked, but it was a huge factor here. When you're constantly playing with your back against the wall, it puts even more pressure on an already struggling offense. Special teams need to be cleaned up because field position can make or break close games like this one. And the Falcons punting completely flipped this matchup, pinning the Raiders deep multiple times. Even 2 or 3 punts landing inside the 10-yard line, with a couple of them even landing within the 5-yard line. One of those situations even led to safety for the Falcons. The Raiders were stuck all game long with bad field position, and that had a huge impact on the offense. Now, for the Raiders, the punting game was a disaster. There were 2 blocked punts, and when it wasn't blocked, it was just a bad punt overall. That's not on A.J. Cole, though. Let's be clear about that. A.J. Cole is one of the best punters in the league, and he's not the problem here. This comes down to blocking. You've got to give your punter time and protection to get the ball off cleanly. But the actual problem was the offense. The coaching on that side of the ball is just not good. The head coach feels average at best, and the offensive line continues to struggle. On top of that, the quarterback play is just average. Yet, despite all of these issues, the Raiders have found ways to hang in there against teams like the Falcons, who are 7-7 and still very much in the playoff picture. And it's not just this game, and we've seen it before. A couple of weeks ago, they kept it close against the Chiefs, and earlier this season, they pulled off a win against the Baltimore Ravens, who are basically locked into the playoffs at this point. So, yeah, it's a strange situation. The Raiders are a team with a ton of problems: bad offense, average coaching, and a struggling quarterback, but somehow they're still managing to stay competitive in games like this one. It's interesting, to say the least. The bigger issue yet was the quarterback play. Desmond Ridder didn't play well, although the Raiders found some success on the final two drives, but that's not sustainable football. Those final drives were all hurry up, and that's not how you manage a game. Even with those late drives, Ritter's decision-making was suspect. Take the fourth down play on the final drive, for example. It was 4th and 8, and Ridder threw the ball 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage. That's a head-scratching decision. Somehow, the Raiders managed to pick up the first down because Amir Abdullah made a great individual effort. Now, if you combine bad quarterback play with special teams disasters and the constant pressure of bad field position, it's no surprise the Raiders couldn't get anything going for most of the game. It's worth noting that the Raiders are down 2 quarterbacks at this point. Ridder is essentially the third quarterback on the roster, and even then, he wasn't even part of this team until a couple of weeks ago. So this is where we are. I don't expect the Raiders to win another game this season, and honestly, the team probably doesn't want to win another game. Actually, the Raiders have their eyes on that #1 overall draft pick. As of now, if they lose out for the rest of the season, they'll likely lock it in. The strength of schedule probably isn't going to need to shift much, given the teams they have played. The Raiders are in a division with 3 playoff-caliber teams, which keeps their schedule tough. Compare that to teams like the Giants, who have also struggled, but their schedule doesn't stack up the same way. So if the Raiders lose their remaining games, they'll be in a position to draft either Caleb Williams or Shedeur Sanders, depending on who the scouts and decision-makers, like Tom Telesco and Tom Brady, view as the top quarterback prospect. It's going to be an interesting few weeks as we approach the offseason. If the Raiders bring in a rookie quarterback, they absolutely have to lock down the tackle position. That's the most important spot on the offensive line, especially in pass protection. On the interior, you can help out with a 3-on-2 situation, but on the outside, it's almost always 1-on-1. If your tackles can't win those battles, your quarterback has no chance. Now it's your turn, Raiders Nation. Do you think the Raiders defense is underrated despite their overall struggles this season? Why or why not? What are your thoughts on Jonah Laulu's performance? Could he become a cornerstone player on the Raiders defensive line? And most importantly, what do you think about the Desmond Ridder play? And who's your quarterback? Is it Caleb Williams or Shedeur Sanders? Drop a comment and let me know who you think should be the #1 pick and why. If you enjoyed this breakdown, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.